enterprise and individuals won't know how far we've gained leverage. When you don't know history, you will fall for anything. When people don't know that Christian conservatives in the 1950s added things like "In God We Trust" or "One Nation Under God" because they were afraid of the humanism associated with the stereotypical communism, they did everything they could to Jesus or Godify the American government. This rectified in McCarthyism in the mid-50s. If you haven't seen Fellow Travelers, I would definitely recommend Fellow Travelers. That's where I learned about the 1950s McCarthyism, the Lavender Scare, the Red Scare. It was basically a moral satanic panic of the 1950s, which seems to come around every 25 years, like the 1980s, the 1990s, the 2010s, and the 2020s. Moral panic never goes away. It just changes clothes, changes groups, but the agenda is always the same. We have to sterilize all forms of relationships, lives, and freedoms that aren't 100% heteronormative and white privileged centered. Things like the Lavender Scare in the 1950s, where the government would hunt people who worked in the government. And if you were caught being anything that wasn't heterosexual, you had to take a polygraph test. Imagine having wires stuck on your body to prove you're heterosexual to keep your government job. Because the government believed that you were a national threat able to be blackmailed if you were gay. Instead of looking at the situation and saying, maybe the Reds wouldn't be able to blackmail homosexual people if we didn't make it socially a taboo that would cause somebody to be blackmailed. They didn't look at it like that. And what's really ironic is Senator McCarthy, who started the McCarthyism, which was the hunting of anyone with communistic, basically anyone who wasn't straight, patriotic, and loved God, they would persecute them. Hundreds of non-heterosexual people were fired, disgraced, committed suicide. The irony here is that Senator McCarthy's right-hand man, Roy Cohn, the most hated government man of the 20th century, became Donald Trump's supporter and Donald Trump's mentor in the 70s and 1980s. The man who persecuted hundreds, if not thousands, of gay people in the government later died of AIDS, most likely living the lifestyle of the people he persecuted. When we don't teach about queer history, we forget how homophobic people treated people who didn't fit in the heteronormative guidelines. What about lavender marriages, where Hollywood or places of importance forced queer people and lesbians to marry or date studio selected dates or wives? How many actors hid who they were for 50 years because of social and career threat? I asked over 200 people, 95% of them were members of the LGBTQ plus group. And I asked 3 straight people why we celebrate Pride in June. Nobody really had a clue. One straight person, a lady, said because the weather is nice. And I said, no, that's why we have weddings. The reason why we celebrate Pride in June is a very complex multifaceted reason. So why do we celebrate Pride in June? To remember the Stonewall uprisings. This happened in June 28th, 1969, at the Stonewall Inn. These events in New York City at the Stonewall Inn, widely considered a turning point in the fight for LGBTQ plus rights in the United States. It was a catalyst for change. It inspired activism, protest, and advocacy for equal rights. National recognition. In 1999, Clinton officially declared June as Gay and Lesbian Pride Month. While June is the most widely recognized month for Pride celebrations, some cities and regions hold their own Pride events. This differs due to weather and local traditions. Interesting fact, when I was in Jacksonville, Florida in 2024, during June, the governor decided he canceled Pride Month and made it illegal to put any colors on bridges, buildings, or anything like pitch lights or neon signs that weren't red, white, and blue. This is unacceptable. I mean, anybody who doesn't like inclusion and takes steps to discriminate against people should not be governor. And anyone who votes for a bigot is a bigot. And Pride Month is just one part that centers on queer history. Queer history can be discussed just about its own advocates, people who fought, died. What about learning about the AIDS quilt, the AIDS crisis, how conservatives gaslit, hid, and caused the deaths of millions of people, heterosexual and gay people, due to abstinence-only education? What about the history of Harvey Milk and how it is legal in half the states in the U.S. to use the gay panic defense, which ironically is what the two white supremacists did when they were tried for the murder and hate crime of Matthew Shepard. When you erase queer history, you erase violence, protests, advocacy, equal rights. They want to inspire ignorance so that hate crimes can continue. There are groups of conservative people, Google it, lots will come up, that deny that hate crimes should come with a stiffer penalty. I asked over 200 people who Matthew Shepard and several other people were. They had no clue. There is a federal anti-hate law signed by Obama, and they don't have a clue whose name is on it. They don't know who James Byrd Jr. is. They don't know the most infamous hate crimes. They don't realize that the states with the least protection under the law for employment, quality of life, health care, transition, assistance, STIs. The STIs are always highest in red states that focus or entirely approach through abstinence only. There's always high poverty because conservative culture is all about white supremacy and hetero privilege. And if you are heterosexual, you have privilege. Now that privilege is a bad thing because nobody deserves that privilege. But if you have that privilege because of no fault of your own, use it, like I do, to educate, protest, write books, be an advocate to keep books in schools, run for offices on the school board to protect kids' access to crucial information. White supremacy only survives when they can keep access to knowledge, silence people who disagree, keep protests and people quiet, teach racist, sexist, and queerphobic dogma. People in the queer community don't even know who Matthew Shepard is, the most famous victim of a gay hate crime. Schools are afraid to teach Black History Month or Black History. They don't even fight or can't even see a reason to fight for queer history if it takes all of their strength, education, and manpower just to get racial history approved. It's almost impossible in certain conservative areas to get queer history approved for teaching. And when people in the most marginalized, persecuted, hate crime-focused groups don't even know their own history, how do we expect white heterosexual politicians to know either? 200 people in June I talked to had no clue who Harvey Milk was, Stonewall, Matthew Shepard,